So a couple big weekends coming up for the Tigers.
Yeah, Clemson's going to host a number of 2022 guys over the next 2 weekends. You know, we've talked about ad nauseum. You know, Brent Venables leaving put a pretty big hole in their current recruiting class. Lost 4 blue chip guys due to his departure for Oklahoma. So they got some holes to fill, you know, before signing day in February. And let's be honest, they're not going to fill those holes with guys who are as talented as the guys they lost. I mean, it's just too late in the process, and you're kind of behind the 8 ball now. So you kind of got to just, you know, see what's left out there and take the best of what you can get. And, you know, with that in mind, you know, Clemson's offered some guys that they're very familiar with here in the last few weeks. Like this weekend, they've got Jaheim Lawson coming in. They've offered him. He's the younger brother of Shaq Lawson. They've got wide receiver Cole Turner coming in. He is the younger brother of Nolan Turner. So those are guys that they are very familiar with. And they've also got cornerback Miles Oliver coming in this weekend. Haven't officially offered yet. I think one will come. They're probably waiting to do it face-to-face. This is a kid who, you know, he just chose not to sign during the early signing period. He's not a very highly rated guy like we're accustomed to seeing Clemson sign, but he's got some teams after him late in the process, you know, that are trying to do what Clemson's doing and filling some holes. I think Georgia Tech's probably Clemson's biggest offer. I mean, Clemson's biggest competition. They haven't offered yet either. But I think these are 3 guys that Clemson's going to land. And to be honest with you, you know, people are going to just look at the ratings and say, oh, man, these guys, you know, they're no good because they're low 3 stars or some of them might not even be rated at all. But if you look at Lawson, he's a little undersized, but there's a lot to like about his film. You know, he's definitely a developmental guy, no doubt about that. But the only other defensive end Clemson had was Ziad Campbell, and, you know, he currently weighs 215 pounds. It's not like he was going to step on the field and contribute next year either. And one guy, I've seen him catching a lot of slack over the Cole Turner offer, you know, and I get it. You hear the word nepotism thrown out a lot in the Clemson fan base. You know, Dabo likes to just offer his friends and buddies and their kids. And, you know, I get all that. But if you look at his film, there's a lot to like there too. You know, this kid's only been playing football the last 2 years, really. He didn't play much as a junior. Well, I take that back. He played a lot as a junior. You know, even his own head coach told me that, you know, the film was just okay. You'd see a flash here and there. But then when you put it on his senior film, there's a big transformation that took place between those 2 years. And he's only played like 10 games in the spread in his entire career. I mean, he's fast. He's got speed. He's a guy you can play in the slot. There's a lot to like about some of these kids. They're just developmental guys. They're not plug-and-play guys.
Got Jason Priester on the line from allclemson.com on SI. I would encourage you to head on over there to get the complete look at Clemson football during recruiting time, headed toward that first Wednesday of February to wrap up the 22 class. And then we'll talk to Jason here pretty soon in the next few days to a week because that third weekend is going to be 2023 prospects coming in. Anything else on the 22 weekends coming up the next 2 weekends?
Yeah, that, you know, I just touched on what they're doing the coming weekend. The following weekend, you know, a little bit more important. You know, they've got running back Andrew Paul coming in. You know, Clemson's been recruiting this guy for a while. They finally offered him just a couple of days before Trevor Etienne committed to Florida. A lot of people wonder why Etienne didn't come to Clemson. Look, let's face it, he didn't want to play in his brother's shadow. Nothing wrong with that. He wants to go blaze his own path. You move on to the next guy, and that's Andrew Paul. And I'm kind of saying the same thing over and over here. You know, some of these guys, Paul's a lower rated guy, didn't have a big junior season. I think he dealt with a lot of, a couple of injuries that kept him from really producing at a high level as a junior, but he really turned it on, had a strong senior season, rushed for almost 3,000 yards, led his team to a state title game. I mean, almost 10 yards per carry. It was some insane numbers, not against the greatest competition there in the league he plays in, but they're still eye-popping numbers nonetheless. And I've maintained all along that I like Paul as much as I like Etienne, maybe even a little bit more. There's a lot there to work with. And Clemson's got 3 really good running backs in place now, so you're able to bring him along at his own pace. Thing is, you got to land him. Michigan's getting involved. He's already visited Colorado. He's going to visit Michigan the weekend after his Clemson visit. I think Clemson's a slight favorite, but, you cannot discount Michigan here. They can become major players in this thing. Linebacker T.J. Dudley's also coming to Clemson the weekend of the 21st. And to me, him and Paul, those are the 2 biggest targets left on the board. Dudley's a 4-star guy, was once committed to Oregon. After Cristobal left to go to Miami, he decided to open things back up. Dudley was planning to take an official visit to Florida this weekend. He doesn't have an offer from Florida yet. Doesn't look like that visit's going to happen. So the following weekend is coming to Clemson. I guess he could end up going to Florida the weekend after that if he chose to do so. But right now, Clemson looks to be in good shape with Dudley, and that sets him up for safety Kylon Griffin, who is Dudley's teammate. He's coming to town the same weekend as Dudley. Clemson still needs another safety in this class. Griffin was once committed to Mississippi State. He'll be at Nebraska this weekend. Then Clemson the next weekend. I think he's going to Southern Cal the weekend after that. I think Clemson's a slight favorite here too. But he's not going to – he's going to weigh all his options after he goes to all 3 schools. Cannot discount USC's chances here. And last but not least, Clemson's got linebacker Kobe Mcleod coming in that same weekend, younger brother of Ray Mcleod. Clemson's kind of been keeping in contact with Mcleod for a while. This is a relationship that was started with Brent Venables. Wes Goodwin kind of kept it going after Venables left. From my understanding, Venables has been in touch with Mcleod since he's left for Oklahoma. They haven't offered, but he has been in contact with him, at least showing some interest. McLeod's going to visit UMass this weekend. He's currently committed to Florida International, but I think he's going to end up flipping and coming to Clemson. Let's face it, Clemson's not going to sign a bunch of 4-star guys before the February signing day. But if you could get, Dudley, Lawson, McLeod, Paul, a couple of those defensive backs, Griffin and Oliver, I think that's a solid finish, all things considered, with all the overhaul on the coaching staff. Then you just go back to the drawing board in 2023. You was always planning to take a small class in 2022, no matter what. Even before the coaching changes, the big class was coming next year. There's going to be a high priority on defensive linemen because Clemson's, signed just a few over the last 2 cycles. Only 1 defensive tackle. They're going to have to take 5 or 6 defensive linemen in 2023. A lot more defensive line talent in 2023 compared to 2022. Big class coming up for, critical class in 2023. But I really think this won't be a bad finish, all things considered. Not what Clemson fans are used to seeing when it comes to recruiting rankings, but it could have been a lot worse.
And I also have to think that because of the status of the Clemson program and the ranking of most of these players, that Clemson's going to be the biggest football brand on the board for most of these players. You did mention Michigan with one of them, but I got to think by and large, they're going to be the team. And so that doesn't automatically mean that they're going to win the player. The player makes his decision based on a number of factors. But in terms of selecting a football power, that Clemson's going to be pretty much the biggest name on the board for most of them.
Yeah, outside of T.J. Dudley and the running back Andrew Paul, yeah, that's absolutely the case. I think Georgia Tech's probably going to be Clemson's biggest competition for a couple of those guys. But, a couple of those other guys. But outside of those 2 guys, Clemson's definitely the biggest name on the board for any of those guys.